Have you ever wondered why some women seem to captivate a man so completely, weaving an invisible thread of obsession that pulls him deeper than he ever thought possible? What is it about certain women that awaken a man's deepest desires, triggering an emotional and psychological frenzy he cannot escape? Carl Jung, the renowned psychologist, spoke of the power of the anima, the inner feminine in every man's psyche. When a woman embodies certain traits, she becomes an incarnation of this anima, drawing the man's unconscious self closer, stirring deep-seated emotions, vulnerabilities, and desires. But these women don't simply engage with his ego, they touch the very core of his soul. They awaken parts of him that he didn't even know existed, unleashing a force that spirals into obsession. But what are these traits? What makes a woman so impossible to forget, a mirror so potent that it cracks his defenses? The first trait that triggers a man's deepest obsession is the mystery she embodies. She isn't easily understood. She doesn't reveal all her cards up front. The woman who remains slightly elusive, who is not an open book, but rather a riddle that must be slowly deciphered, draws a man in with the allure of the unknown. She becomes a mirror that reflects not only the surface of who he is, but also the depths of who he could be. Her mystery forces him to dig deeper, to look harder, and in doing so, he loses himself in the pursuit of uncovering the hidden truths of her essence. It is in this mystery that his unconscious mind becomes enamored. Jung's concept of the shadow comes into play here, the parts of ourselves we deny or repress. When a man encounters a woman who does not readily reveal herself, he is drawn to the parts of himself that he has yet to understand. This mystery taps into the deepest part of him, and in seeking to know her, he is unknowingly pulled into a journey of self-exploration. The more he tries to solve her, the deeper he falls into his own emotional labyrinth. And this is where obsession begins, the desire to conquer not just her, but the unknown parts of himself she awakens. The second trait is self-sufficiency. The woman who triggers his deepest obsession is not the one who seeks validation or constantly requires reassurance. She knows who she is. She is anchored in herself, in her worth, in her own existence. This self-assurance is magnetic to the point of being almost unattainable. It stands as a stark contrast to the dependency many men unknowingly expect. She doesn't lean on him for her happiness, and this independence unsettles him. It awakens a desire to possess, to capture, to fill the void that her emotional autonomy brings. In her self-sufficiency, she mirrors his own internal struggles. Her lack of need for him forces him to reckon with his own ego, his own insecurities, and his own need for external validation. As much as he may admire her strength, it becomes a silent challenge to him, a constant reminder that he must become more than what he is. He feels both threatened and inspired by her independence, and the tension between these opposing forces stirs obsession in ways that no simple attachment can. And then, there is the third trait, unapologetic authenticity. She lives unapologetically, without fear of judgment, without bending to society's expectations or anyone else's approval. She owns her truth, her flaws, her strength, her vulnerability, and her complexity. She doesn't seek perfection, nor does she strive to conform to the ideals of what a woman should be. To a man, this is both terrifying and alluring. Terrifying because it forces him to confront the parts of himself that he's hidden in order to fit into societal roles. All his carefully constructed facades begin to collapse under the weight of her authenticity. She shows him that it's possible to be free from the need for approval, and in doing so, she challenges him to break free from his own prison. In this freedom, he becomes both terrified and obsessed. Terrified that he could never be as free, but obsessed with the idea of becoming that way. This authenticity touches something primal within him, a desire not to possess, but to merge with her freedom. He longs for the same sense of liberation, but it's in her, not in him. And so, his obsession deepens, not just because of who she is, but because she triggers his desire to become more, to live more authentically, to transcend the limits he's placed on himself. These three traits, mystery, self-sufficiency, and unapologetic authenticity, create a psychological magnetism so strong that a man can't help but become consumed by them. The woman who embodies these qualities becomes the mirror he cannot look away from, because she forces him to confront his own unconscious depths, his hidden desires, and his need for transformation. As he falls deeper into the obsession, the woman who embodies these traits becomes a silent force of transformation in his life. She doesn't need to push or demand. Her mere existence awakens something in him that he cannot ignore, a call to self-awareness and growth. In Jungian terms, she is the embodiment of his anima, but she does not merely reflect the woman he desires. She holds up a mirror to his deepest fears and desires, compelling him to acknowledge the parts of himself that have remained dormant for too long. He begins to unravel, not because she manipulates or tries to control him, but because she forces him to confront his own contradictions. The more he chases her, the more he chases his own sense of truth and authenticity. He is both repelled and magnetized by the force she exudes, and it is this dichotomy that fuels his obsession. Her mystery challenges his understanding of the world. She isn't confined by the traditional roles society has assigned her. She is not a trophy to be won, a conquest to be claimed. Instead, she is an enigma, untouchable, yet accessible, distant, yet emotionally present. His mind churns with questions he cannot answer. What does she truly want? What does she truly need? The answers remain elusive, and this is exactly what triggers his obsession. He tries to decode her, to find patterns in her behavior, to figure out her next move, to solve her mystery. But each time he thinks he has it figured out, she shifts, leaving him at a loss. The more he seeks, the more he realizes how much he has yet to understand. It's not just about winning her over, it's about winning the internal battle within himself. He wants to conquer her, but the more he tries, the more he realizes that the real battle is to conquer his own internal limitations, to expand beyond the boundaries he's set for himself. And so, his obsession deepens, not only with her, but with the version of himself he sees reflected in her. Her self-sufficiency presents a paradox that he cannot escape. At first, it is her independence that unsettles him, causing him to question his place in her life. He is used to being the source of validation, of love, of strength. But she doesn't need him. She is already whole. This rattles him in ways he cannot articulate. In her independence, he sees his own dependence. He realizes that he has been seeking fulfillment from external sources, from the validation of others, from his achievements, from the need to be admired. Yet, she shows him that true strength comes from within. Her ability to stand alone challenges him to examine his own capacity for self-reliance. His obsession grows, not because he wants to possess her, but because he begins to realize that in order to truly be worthy of her, he must first become self-sufficient. He must let go of his dependency on others' approval and learn to rely on his own strength. Then, there is the pull of her unapologetic authenticity. She doesn't seek validation, and she doesn't apologize for being exactly who she is. This alone is enough to trigger his deepest fears. How many times has he sought to fit into a mold, to be someone he isn't, just to be accepted? How many times has he ignored his own truth in order to be loved? She stands in defiance of that, a living testament to the freedom that comes from embracing one's true self without apology. In this authenticity, he feels both admiration and deep insecurity. How can he be as free as she is when his own life is marked by compromise, by the lies he's told himself, by the emotional walls he's built to protect himself from the world? Her refusal to conform awakens his own longing to break free from the constraints he's placed on himself, but it also highlights his fear of being seen, of being exposed for who he really is. And so, the obsession grows. Not just for her, but for the version of himself he desperately wants to become, a man who stands as freely and unapologetically as she does. This is the paradox of a woman who triggers a man's deepest obsession. She pulls him deeper into himself. She doesn't give him answers, she only presents him with questions. Questions about who he is, who he wants to be, and how he can transcend the limits of his own existence. As the obsession continues, the woman who embodies mystery, self-sufficiency, and authenticity becomes more than just a source of fascination. She becomes the catalyst for his transformation. And whether or not he realizes it, his obsession with her is not just about possessing her. It's about becoming more than he ever thought possible. With every interaction, the woman who triggers his deepest obsession becomes a reflection of the changes happening within him. As his desire grows, he begins to understand that his obsession is not about ownership, but about awakening to the truth that lies dormant within himself. She, in her mystery and self-sufficiency, becomes the catalyst for his individuation, the Jungian process of integrating the unconscious with the conscious self, of becoming the person he was always meant to be. In his obsession, he is faced with a powerful, uncomfortable truth. He cannot possess her, because she is not something to be conquered. She is a force, a presence, an energy that transcends his need for control. And yet, in trying to understand her, he begins to understand himself. Each moment he spends obsessing over her pulls him deeper into his own psyche, as he confronts the layers of ego, the insecurities, and the fears he has long ignored. This process is not easy. It is painful, disorienting, and humbling. The man who once believed he had control over his emotions now finds himself swept up in something far greater than himself, something that shakes him to his core. His desire for her becomes a mirror that reflects everything he has yet to confront within himself. His own vulnerabilities, his need for validation, his fear of rejection. As much as he tries to project his fantasies onto her, she refuses to conform. She is not the object of his desire. She is the person who challenges him to grow beyond his limitations. In this way, the obsession becomes a paradox. He is drawn to her, but it is not her that he truly seeks. He seeks the version of himself she inspires him to become. She is the spark, the catalyst, but the true journey lies within. The more he obsesses, the more he realizes that his true work is not about winning her affection. It is about reclaiming his own authenticity, his own sense of power, his own freedom. As this process unfolds, the woman who embodies these traits, mystery, self-sufficiency, and unapologetic authenticity, becomes a teacher without words. She does not need to guide him with advice or instruction. Her very presence is the lesson. She shows him, through her silence, through her independence, through her authenticity, that the deepest connection he will ever have is not with her, but with himself. And yet, this realization does not diminish his obsession. Instead, it intensifies it. As he begins to understand his own psychological depths, he finds himself both liberated and consumed by the very qualities she embodies. He wants to know her, yes, but more importantly, he wants to become the man who is worthy of knowing her. He wants to shed the layers of fear, doubt, and ego that have kept him from being fully alive. There is a shift that happens as the obsession deepens. He begins to detach from the need to control or possess her. Instead, he embraces the idea that she is a reflection of something he has yet to fully embrace in himself. His desire becomes less about her and more about the transformation she triggers within him. He no longer sees her as a prize to be won, but as a symbol of the woman he can become, the embodiment of his own self-awareness and growth. In the end, the woman who triggers his deepest obsession becomes the key to his own transformation. Through his desire for her, he learns to desire himself, to understand his own value, his own worth, and his own capacity for growth. And while the obsession may never fully fade, it shifts from a longing to possess her to a longing to evolve, to transcend, and to embrace the fullness of his own being. The woman who knows her worth doesn't chase, she chooses. She chooses herself first, and in doing so, she allows others to choose themselves as well. She becomes the mirror, not just for him, but for anyone who crosses her path, reflecting the deep truths that we all must confront in our own journey towards self-realization.